Hey, what's going on, guys? So now that I've finally gotten a chance to get more than just the one gun that I've reviewed so far in Iron Banner, we'll talk about that in another video, I finally got the time-worn Spire, the Iron Banner Pulse Rifle, and right off the bat, first thing I noticed was that they basically finally balanced the Clever Dragon properly, because it felt like I was firing the Clever Dragon. I mean, it didn't look the same, and it didn't sound the same. It sounds like a Nightshade, just a lot faster. But it definitely felt like very similar fire rates. It felt like I was basically using a Clever Dragon, and it felt pretty good. It definitely has a pretty strong spot in certain types of Crucible fights. Not the same as like a Nightshade. Even though it is modeled after the Nightshade, it looks very, very similar because it's basically a reskin of the Nightshade. But it doesn't really fight like one. Basically, the Nightshade has more range than this gun does, so the Nightshade can actually do better in longer range encounters, but even that gun is still more like the longer end of mid-range and sort of the short end of the long range. The Time-Worn Spire fights a lot better right at mid-range, if not a little bit further than that middle part of mid-range. Now, that might sound a little bit ambiguous, but basically, you can fight almost as far as a Nightshade, but not quite. So this is more of a gun you're going to have to kind of do some acrobatics, get really creative. Maybe if they're running at you, you might want to even unscope as you're firing, and it's something I actually did quite a few times, and it worked pretty well. Luckily, the handling on this gun is still really, really good, and it feels like it can turn a lot faster. So it was pretty easy for me to make this work in a lot closer ranges than Pulse Rifles are really supposed to work at. So I think you might still like it. It definitely has some perks that make it really good, and I feel like it's still a very solid choice. Even if you already have a Nightshade, maybe you don't like the fire rate, maybe you don't like to fight very long range, and you want to get a little bit more aggressive, but you want kind of a longer range option, this is definitely a good one for you to have in your arsenal. So now that we actually have the gun open right now, you can tell that the stats are built very similarly to the Nightshade, but pretty much every single one of them is just lower than the Nightshade. However, the fire rate is much higher than that, so in most cases, the fire rate will make up for its lack of range, impact, and stability. Now, the handling is still really good, especially for the fire rate, and it's going to feel a lot faster because of that extra fire rate. The magazine is also a pretty healthy size. I never felt like I was running out of ammo too fast, so I don't think you're going to have a problem there. Now, as far as the perks go, the intrinsic perk is Rapid Fire Frame, deeper ammo reserves, slightly faster reload when the magazine is empty, feeds very well into the high fire rate archetype that we have here. For its sights, we have Hitmark IS, which is the one that I was using. It adds better handling speed and increases your range. You can also use Red Dot Micro or Rifle Scope SSF. And you can also have Tactical Mag, which I chose not to use. And then you have Accurized Rounds, which I did choose to use, which increases range, which for any pulse rifle or anything that is supposed to be designed to go longer range or even mid-range, you really want more range in this meta right now. Because even the Uriel's Gift, one of its biggest strengths is that very high range. Now, of course, it also has high cal rounds. That's a whole other discussion for another topic. But the range makes that a very powerful weapon. Same goes for here. I decided to use that for more range instead of just going for stability and reload speed, because as good as stability is, with range that small, it's really not going to make that big of a difference, or it's really not going to balance out properly, I should say. So I decided to go with Accurized Rounds. And lastly, it has Zen Moment. This is the best trait on this gun in my opinion, because if you can hit them once, you'll get more stability anyway. So that's the other reason why I chose not to go ahead and add more stability manually at the cost of my range, because if I can at least hit one of those 3 rounds on my target, I can get more stability for the next burst. So each progressive burst, I'm guessing to a certain limit, is going to become tighter and tighter because there's less recoil, which is going to make you hit more of your shots and therefore have better DPS. So I've told you this gun is good in general, but this is meant for certain types of playstyles. Now, in my opinion, this would better fit somebody who's a little bit more aggressive, somebody who normally likes to get up in people's faces, but maybe you're on a longer range map, or maybe you're on a map that has some sight lines that are pretty long, but you also have good corridors too. I would also pair this with maybe an SMG or even a Last Hope, because you want to have something that is very close range, especially if you are very aggressive. If you're not really that aggressive, if you like to play very far back, I would actually not advise that you use this pulse rifle, because while this does have some range, it doesn't nearly have the range of even a Nightshade, which even that can't stand up to a scout rifle in this meta. So if you're the type that likes to play back, maybe you have a sniper rifle in your power slot, I would advise you instead to maybe use like a Nameless Midnight, a Mida multi-tool, or maybe something that's a little bit longer range. And like I said, if you're very aggressive, this is definitely a good thing to have in your arsenal. I think you'll find that this is very useful for you, and it's a good way to change up your playstyle. It sounds good, and it feels pretty good too, and once you get used to it, you're going to have a hard time switching to anything else. Personally, I'm going to be holding on to this, but ultimately, if you get one, it's up to you if you want to hold on to it or not. It can really go either way. It's not really an essential one to have, but it's just sort of nice to have. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. GG.